Welcome back. Finally, this hour, she is a showbiz icon. Actress Morgan Fairchild has been performing since the 70s and has appeared in more than 150 movies and television shows. Everything from Dallas to Roseanne to Friends. Yes, remember, she was Chandler's mom on Friends. Even an Emmy-nominated performance on Murphy Brown. Fairchild made her Alhambra theater debut in Jacksonville back in 1973 when she played opposite Artie Johnson in The 7-Year Itch. Now she's back more than 40 years later and starring on stage as Lexi in the new production of Dixie Swim Club. It's a special treat as Morgan Fairchild joins us in the studio. So good to meet you. Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to meet you.
I'm a longtime fan. It's exciting to get to meet people up close and personal like this. Welcome to Jacksonville.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be back after all this time.
That's right. I didn't realize you had been in an Alhambra production in the 70s. So
I did 4 in the 70s. I did 4 in 73. I had just gotten divorced and, was sort of trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And I went ahead and changed my name legally to Morgan Fairchild. So this was the first town that I'd actually worked as Morgan Fairchild in. Because I was just damned if I was going to spend the rest of my life putting his name in lights.
Weren't you born Patsy?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you adopted, and what a great stage name that is. It's unforgettable. I mean, so it's a return to Alhambra, and you play Lexi in Dixie Swim Club. What's the show all about?
It's really fun. It's about 5 women who were on the swim team together in college and became close friends, and they get together every year at the same cottage in the Outer Banks and just catch up and try not to lose touch with each other. And they're very different types, and I think everybody in the audience will say, "Oh, I went to school with that one," or "Oh, that's my sister." And they're very different types, but you see them kind of grow over the years and mellow somewhat, and just everything that they kind of go through and how they keep their friendship together. And it's very funny. It's interesting because a lot of the guys will come up and say, "Well, I came because my wife wanted to see this chick show, but I laughed more than she did."
Oh, that's awesome. It's 549-2937 to connect with showbiz icon Morgan Fairchild. And, I don't even know where to begin. I've enjoyed you in so many movies and television shows. I mean, you were on Dallas. You played Jenna Wade on Dallas.
Yeah.
That is burned into my brain. and what was it like working with Larry Hagman on Dallas? That must have been just a real kick.
Well, it was. Larry and I were the only 2 native Texans on the show.
That's right.
And so all these people who will remain unnamed were doing bad Southern accents. And, so the producer would say, go over and talk to Morgan or Larry there. They'll give you the real Texas accent. So people would come over with their script and hold it up and say, will you say my lines back to me in Texan so I can understand?
Oh, how funny.
So you'd try to do the line reading for them. But, the show wasn't really written for Larry to come off the star. I mean, he and I had a couple of scenes where we were really chewing the scenery together.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, is it right to say that when you played Sandra Bernhardt's girlfriend on Roseanne, that was the first lesbian relationship on network TV? I think it was.
Maybe. I can't remember what year Ellen did her show where she came out.
I thought you came first.
It may have. That's what interested in me. They called and offered it to me, this story arc, and I thought, this would be interesting because especially the first episode, it's this whole buildup of Sandra's new girlfriend. And I knew the last person anyone in the world was going to expect to see when she opened the door was Morgan Fairchild. So I thought it was very funny, and I think I like to do things that are groundbreaking, that are iconoclastic, that, are on the cutting edge of things. And so whenever I'm offered a chance to get in there and do something creative, I try to do it.
And you keep doing it. A whole new generation loved you when you played Chandler Bing's mother on Friends. Mm-hmm. No one expected you to be there when the door opened, and there you were, so beautiful. And then immediately, I think people said, "Well, of course, that's what Chandler's mom would look like."
Well, when they offered that one, the show was not a big hit yet when they offered that to me, and a lot of my friends were saying, "Oh, you don't want to do that. You're too young to play that guy's mother," and all this. But I had seen the show, and I thought the kids were really good individually, and and the ensemble work was really good. It's kind of two different talents. And so I thought the show had such potential. God, was I right? And so, so I said yes. And then, I got on there, and Matthew Perry says to me, "Oh, you won't remember me, but my dad played the sheriff on Flamingo Road and Falcon Crest, and I used to come over on Flamingo Road and visit you when I was 9. And I'm like, I guess I am old enough to be this kid's mother.
That's hilarious. Now, you're so beautiful. You're so talented. People don't realize about you, unless they follow you on Twitter, that you're also quite brilliant.
Well, thank you. You can stay all day, honey.
You're a foreign policy expert. You know more about foreign policy, it's true, than some of the actual foreign policy wonks running the government. I think that's been noted. You're very well informed. You were an early AIDS activist. You even have given testimony about the disease. You were one of the earliest celebrities to sort of come out and get out in front of that issue back in the 80s.
Well, see, I'm a science nerd, and I wanted to be a doctor or paleontologist when I was a kid, so I always kept my hand in and read a lot. So I'd been following this new virus since 81, when it didn't even have a name. It was just 11 cases of Kaposi sarcoma in New York, and then 12 cases of pneumocystis pneumonia in California. And I'm following this and thinking, this is odd. And then it came out that it was all in gay men. And then you knew something new was out there. So I tried to warn all my gay friends for a long time. But then when Rock Hudson got sick, I had been Rock's date to his AFI, Lifetime Achievement dinner the year before. And, he'd look great. He was on Dynasty, and I'd heard that he wasn't looking so good, so I knew immediately what it was. And anyway, everybody told me I would lose work if I tackled something this controversial. Everybody told me it's too hot. There was such fear mentality. It's hard for people to remember now, especially young people who weren't around at the time, the great fear and stigma at the time, how scary it was.
Yeah.
But I knew I was the only famous face they had that could get out and go on Nightline and explain what a retrovirus is and how it works and how you do and don't get it. And when people were scared of doctors and, were scared of regular people, I knew that I, as a sex symbol, could go out and talk about sex in a way that was different than some, clinical analysis of it. So I felt a moral obligation to do that. I opened the first AIDS Veterans Wing with Mayor Koch in New York. I was there for the unveiling of the first quilt, testified before Congress to get AIDS funding. Just joined at the hip at Tony Fauci from NIH and Surgeon General Koop at the time, just trying to disseminate knowledge and get rid of the stigma.
You were as knowledgeable talking about this as C. Everett Koop, the Surgeon General. He was your friend too, right?
He was my buddy. Yeah, he was my buddy. And for all the people who only knew him, he died recently, but for all the people who only knew him as the old bearded guy that's, on the I've fallen and I can't get up thing.
Right.
I mean, the gay community owes that man their lives a lot because he was appointed by a conservative president because he was anti-abortion. But nobody really considered that when an epidemic hit that he would step up as a real doctor and fight the system and go against some of the conservative dogma of the time and actually take action on it. Yeah. And I knew that he wanted to be Secretary of Health and Human Services, and I knew that he knew when he took this stand he would never get that job, and he took the stand anyway. And I just can't say enough wonderful things about him and what he did to step up on the AIDS crisis.
Sure. And as you said, you lost some acting jobs, I'm sure, in the short term, but in the long term, what a career. Do you still love acting?
Yeah, I love, I've been doing it since I was 10.
Yeah.
I've been around a long time. Started in the theater when I was 10 and doing commercials even back in Dallas and runaway production in Dallas, all kinds of different movies and things. My first movie I worked on was Bonnie and Clyde in 66. And so, that's where I got the bug for movies. I just loved it.
Who did you play in Bonnie and Clyde?
I was Faye's double, which is different than a stand-in. It's like I was getting ready to go open a Funny Thing Happened Away to the Forum, and a gentleman who owned all the sound stages where we did the commercials and a lot of stuff called me and said, "Hey, you want to be in a movie?" And I said, "Well, sure." And he says, "Well, I'll be at the North Park Inn at 5 a.m. And I said,
"Get out of
I'm
here.
opening a show tonight. I don't know if I can be there at 5 a.m. He says, "Well, you have to be if you're going to be in the movie." All right. I didn't know the name of it. I didn't know anything. And just as we're getting off the phone, he says, "Oh, can you drive stick shift?" And I said, oh, sure. So I got to the theater and I said to the guys, hey, you got to take me back
at
intermission. Can we go in the alley? You teach me how to drive stick shift. So, so I had no idea. So I get out there and it's all these old cars, to drive stick shift. And, but I got there at 5 a.m. in this parking lot at the North Park Inn. They put us all on a bus. I don't know who anybody is. I don't know where we're going. I don't know what we're doing. They take us out to the middle of nowhere, Texas, which in Texas, as I can say, for being from Texas, is middle of nowhere. And, we get off the bus. It's still pitch black. I don't know what to do. I'm a kid. I've never been on a movie set. So I said,
how old were you?
16.
Wow.
So I said, what do I do? And somebody said, well, why don't you go look at the set? And I said, where's the set? And they said, it's down that road. It's a dirt road. So I start down this road kind of in the dark. The sun is just barely coming up. And I'm thinking, I'm looking for the set. They said, there's an old house down there. And I'm looking and looking, and I don't see any old house. And so finally, sun's coming up, and this guy is kind of walking toward me, kind of head down with the hands in his pockets, sort of shuffling along, coming toward me, with the sun coming up behind him. And I said, excuse me, sir, is this the way to the set? And then he looked up at me and he said, why, yes, it is. Let me show you the way. It's Warren Beatty.
And I bet Warren Beatty really wanted to show you the way to the set, based on what we know about Warren Beatty.
Well... very smart man.
Well, and you're a very smart woman, and it is just a pleasure to meet you. And I'm sure the show is amazing. You got to get your tickets now to Dixie Swim Club, starring the great Morgan Fairchild. She plays Lexi in the show, and it runs through September. Get your tickets now at alhambrajax.com. We could keep talking. Unfortunately, I have to end this program right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I wish we could keep talking. It's so good to meet you, and I'm sure I could hear so many more amazing stories. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And that is our show. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Melissa Ross. 1A is up next. We'll be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow with Jacksonville City Council President Anna Brochet looking at the issue of removing Confederate monuments in the city. Have a great day.